Hi, you found the second half of Why We Are Christians. We're interviewing Sebastian D'Souza, and we just ended this last half hour with talking about the possibility of him worrying about getting tired of
my two brothers, older, and they had moved on. They'd gone to college and working. And so she was very concerned about my life, where direction I was going. And so I was in junior college, going to a community college in San Francisco. And so when I came home from church, I told her, I really liked it. And I started to explain to her what I was learning, and explained to her the information from the Bible that was impacting me. And so she was listening, and she also kind of agreed that, this is some interesting things that you're learning, and she didn't reject it right away. But she started to slowly get concerned. And so she was concerned because she said, "Why are you going back? If you don't go back, will they get mad at you?" Yeah. I said, "No, not at all. In fact, I don't have to go back. I'm just going because I really want to go." Mm-hmm. So she was concerned that I'm being pressured, and there's some people pressuring me to go to church. Mm-hmm. So this was a situation. And then, so she called her the priest, the one who would come to our house. He came to our home for dinner a couple of times, so he knew us all really well. He even took us out, my brother and I, to play racquetball one time. And so going on, and I explained to him that we're learning about Christ and what he did for us, and serving him and telling others. And so he told my mom, I think, for now in his season in his life, it's okay for him to be a part of it, but he wanted to encourage me to join a group at the parish that also does similar kind of things. But by then I had already felt that I want to continue going to this. I didn't feel like I wanted to try that because I was satisfied with this group that I'm learning and growing with. And so, but my brother, who's insisted that, I'm not on the right track. I told my mom, do not let him go to that church because they're going to brainwash him. And he didn't even like the idea of me becoming a Christian. And so I said, wow, the president is a Christian. How can you say it's only for ignorant people?
Right.
We have the president is there. And so I seemed to have like an answer for different things that he had. And so we kind of grew apart a little bit there. And there was a lot of pressure. So finally my mom started to get high blood pressure related to this and also other events that going on in her life. So she said, you going to this church and I'm worried about you. So you cannot go to this church. You have to, if you're going to stay in my house, you have to come back and be in the Catholic Church. She says, I don't want this anymore. Right. And he's gone on Friday, or he's gone on this day. And where are you going? I'm going to church. So anyway, I know you don't want me to go. She says, well, then you have to leave the house. Pack your things and leave. So I did.
Tense time.
Yeah, I took some things in my duffel bag, and I went to church, and I stayed with my friend that night. And then in maybe a week or so, we found out about these two guys that were Christian guys from our church looking for a roommate. And I was able to go there, and they were mature, strong Christians. And so they taught me a lot about the gospel and about following Christ as well. We would eat together every night. We would pray before we eat. We would pray for different countries. Before we eat, we had these little prayer cards. And so it was a very strong time of just being discipled by these. But yet loving, you know, not in a harsh way, but
Right.
he will tell you as it is. But the
Yeah.
other guy would probably be a little bit more diplomatic if you do anything wrong.
Right.
So it was kind of a really rich time for me. So I'm glad I took that stand, and God opened the way for me. And pretty soon, my relationship with my mother mended because
Good.
she realized that I am not doing anything harmful,
Right.
or and in fact, I am getting close to God, who
Right.
she also believes in. You know,
Right, right.
before, when I would tell her about I'm meditating and I'm doing these things that are like Hindu, she says, for me, it's only God. The also maybe appreciated the fact that I am back
Right,
with
right.
Christ. You know.
That's perfect. So let's talk a little bit about your education. While you were living with these guys and you were 18 or 19, you went to
Yeah.
junior college
I went
for
to
a
junior
while.
college.
But then you became born again, and tell us a little bit about where your heart started to get pulled.
So I got born again, and then I moved in with
Right.
these two guys. So they helped me understand. So I would go to these meetings that we have a prayer meeting once a week, and I would go there. And one day I was just reading, and I felt the message of Matthew 28:19 and 20 really stood out, and it kind of gave me an impression that disciples, teaching them to obey everything that I've told you, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, and I'm with you even to the end of the age, that passage. And so that made a strong impression to me, because being from India, I thought about all the people in India that have not heard about Jesus Christ. And so I thought, this is something that God can use me as a bridge to go into those places. And I had also read a book by a guy named Sadhu Sundar Singh, and how he was totally suicidal when his mother died. But he recalled one thing. He says his mother, she said, if you're ever in trouble, just call to Jesus. Even though he was read that book, and he said Jesus appeared to him and told him in Hindi, which really meant something to me, because I wanted to see Christ manifested in India. And that spoke to me, and I felt that I wanted people there to know, you know,
Wow.
like what Sundar Singh was going through,
Right.
and how he went from being suicidal to having hope.
Wow.
And his life was then put in a path to be a servant of God.
Right.
And so that started to get me interested in going to a Christian's college. So I looked around, and back then there was a popular radio program called Biola Hour. So I learned about California with Southern California, and so I applied for that. And I applied thinking, you know, they may or may not accept me, because I'm not. I don't know. I didn't take my SATs. I don't know. I don't have a lot of shining grades and so forth. But I got this acknowledgement or letter of acceptance, and I thought, man, God is. I was so happy, and then at that moment, I felt God is saying to me, Sebastian, you're going in the right direction. Because before that, I was thinking I'll go into learning about some medical field, you know, helping people, serving people. But here I felt more like, now I want to preach the gospel.
So you really. But let me just say real quick that if you weren't here in our last half hour, early on, one of Sebastian's major fears was that he was going to be called to be a missionary. Felt that calling, and you went to Biola, and you then did get into missions.
Yes, and then I met people, I got connections, so that I learned about different ways to go on the mission field. And so I ended up joining a denomination that supports you as you go to the mission field. And you don't have to go, looking for funding.
Right.
They have funding. It's
Right.
a denomination that's focused on reaching the world,
Mm-hmm.
and very, very highly respected.
Mm-hmm.
Through one-on-one different tests that they give you, psychological tests. Then they give you 2 years at least minimum in America. They watch how you do, and then they appointed us, my wife and I, and we were appointed to Thailand. I knew I wanted to go to Asia somewhere. I wanted to go to India, but India seemed to have not many openings for a missionary. Maybe if you go there as a teacher or something else, but if you're just going there strictly as a missionary to talk about the Lord, they don't have that kind of opportunity there. So we ended up going to Thailand.
So Thailand did have that kind of an opportunity.
Yeah, Thailand offers a visa. There's a freedom of religion. They even offer a missionary visas too. So you go in there as a missionary. Gets hurt. And the teachers there, they don't use the new innovative kinds of teaching methods. They just get out the kindergarten books that the kids in kindergarten get. And so then you just go through that and you're learning A, B, C, D, basically.
Wow.
But in their script and their writing, so you learn to write and you learn to read. And it gets to the point where our teacher just drills and drills and drills until you point where I literally had headaches.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh
It's like
my gosh.
brain, and she's listening for every sound because Thai is a tonal language, and if you make a mistake in the tone, you've made you got it wrong, and you said the completely wrong word.
Can you give Wow.
My, so that's new silk. My doesn't burn. My, does it?
Wow.
Question mark. And so these tones have to be correct, or you will be making errors in communication. And
Wow.
so it really calls, you have to concentrate. But once you get it, you pretty much can hear it now.
You can roll. So once you learned the language, then what did you do?
So then we would have our goal was to have small groups around the city of Bangkok, because Bangkok is so congested that you want to decentralize building, which they do on Sunday. And so we were kind of given that direction to help with those groups. So we had a small group in our house, and we tried to help other groups as well.
And how did it go?
Well, for me, it was a difficult thing. Since I'm an Indian, and I don't know what other Indians experience there, but I had a really difficult time because I felt right away that when I was there that people kind of looked at me with suspicion, and I found out that Indian people are considered somewhat this idea that this rejection that I felt, and so it became a very difficult thing. In fact, they looked down on people of they thought maybe I'm a terrorist.
Really?
Yeah, and this is before 9/11 took place. And there was one hotel I tried to go to, doing some vacation planning, and I talked to her on the phone, and I don't know how she knew this, but she called me back and she said, "Sir, are you Indian?" I said, "Well, I'm American, but I'm from India." And she says, I'm sorry, we do not accept Indians in our hotel.
Oh my
I
gosh.
said, well, why is that? She said, well, it's the owner has that rule. So I went, because in America you can't do this kind of thing.
Discrimination.
Discrimination.
You're right.
It's bold-faced discrimination. And
Dis-
so she says, oh, the word is Ajahn. They call you because you're oh Ajahn. That's the way that people are over here. Some of them they don't accept everybody. And so she was almost apologizing for them, but not really upset. She was almost like saying that's normal. And so I slowly realized that it's going to be a tough go for me. I think not slowly. I kind of immediately realized that this is going to be tough because as a missionary, you're supposed to connect.
Right.
And
with the
you're
people.
supposed to, you're supposed to be a general.
Right.
And I asked around these other missionaries, and I said, do you have any friends that are Thai? And not really. So it's really hard for them to get into the life and know people the way we want to.
What is the overarching religion of Thailand?
Most of them are Buddhist.
Okay.
Yeah, and the Buddhist religion there is very strong. It's everywhere you look. There's temples and spirit houses, and every morning there's monks on the streets collecting food and taking it back to the temple. It's a very very fine-tuned system.
So did you feel, I don't know if the word defeated, make connections with any of the Thai people?
Some, but they was somewhat limited, very, very limited. One of my language guys that was teaching me, I connected with him. We were good friends. But so when I was going through all of that stress and feeling isolated, feeling rejected, feeling almost tolerated, not accepted,
Right.
even in the church, unfortunately, that sort of made me feel like I didn't belong there. I just didn't belong there, and I had committed so much time and effort to be there. So I got really discouraged.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did your relationship with God?
Getting to dislike, in a way, I felt maybe disappointed in God. Because why am I here and why is this happening to me?
Right, right.
So
What's the purpose?
yes. And so
Yeah.
even though I was praying and so forth, I was going through the motions of devotion, yet in my heart I was getting to a low point in my life where I was looking for other ways to survive rather than just trusting in God. Yeah, and so it became more of a, like really a tough, spiritually dark place.
Right, right. What happened then?
So after that, it was a sort of a time just to collect ourselves and to what are we doing now? You know, where are we going from here? Where do we go from here? And we talked about possibly going to other countries. By then, we had grown a little bit older, and they prefer to keep the missionary sending age to a country below 30. But then we had probably about 32, something like that. So, and then also I noticed that there was hesitancy because it didn't work out in Thailand. Maybe if we send you somewhere else, what if it doesn't work out there? So we ended up just doing other stuff. You know, I started to teach. Senior pastor, and I'm an assistant pastor.
Oh, great. So
Yeah.
here, where?
It's in San Pablo, California.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, great.
So-
Great. So which is part of the San Francisco area?
Yes.
Okay, the Bay Area. Excellent. So you're an assistant pastor.
Yes. So we share the preaching. We preach every other week, and we do. You know, we try to encourage and the body of Christians and do outreaches and different things, train and counsel where needed.
How big is the church?
Our church has about 12 families or so. So there's about maybe 12 to 18 families in an. Like there are many churches that have been planted in the Philippines because it's predominantly Filipinos, my church. And my wife is from the Philippines.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Okay. So we were talking a little bit about the Thai language, and now that you've been home for a while, you're still using it.
Yes, I'm very glad that I remember majority of it, and for sure. And in fact, we had an event last weekend. We went camping, and there was a lady from Thailand that came. She's a friend of one of our senior pastor's wife. They're both nurses. So while we were sitting down, I was able to converse with her in Thai. And she said, she was thinking, you know, I'm kind of happy. I don't want to ask anything from God, you know. She had this feeling like, I have everything that I need. I'm happy right now, so I haven't asked anything from God. And I don't know for sure if he's real because I haven't asked him for anything yet. So once I ask him something and he does it, then I know he's real, right? I said, but God has already done something for you, you know. You know that we have all sinned and we all will face God's judgment. She said, you know, even in Thailand, they say after you die, you might go to hell or you might go to heaven. Even though that's not Buddhist teaching, but they have that in their culture. So they have something called hell, narok. So you can either tok narok means tok means fall, phon tok. Jesus received punishment for us. And so she smiled, and I said, it was almost as if that's great news. So now this comes to the point of her understanding, well, you know, you have to receive it for yourself. That's not just news out there, but you receive it for yourself. And God needs to still convict her of being a sinner. Because sometimes people feel like if I haven't killed anybody, I am not a sinner. I'm not.
Right.
But
I'm a good person.
But the Thai people do understand. Tukon pen bap means everybody's a sinner, and it's like one of those sayings, you know, everybody will accept. And they say things like that in that culture where everybody seems to say, it's like, do you guys all say the same things, and they do in that culture.
I love your story, Sebastian. We're getting down to the end of this segment, so I want to ask you a couple things. Mm-hmm. Is there anything that we didn't cover that you want to talk about?
Well, I think the thing that I really want to talk about is the high point in my Christian life.
Okay.
And I have to say that I have the high point in my Christian life
so
really
far
has nothing to do with my ministry. And in fact, when I first thought about it, I was thinking about high point, maybe some ministry, but really what it was. I have 3 kids, and I have the old day that she surrendered her life to Christ, because I got to know her. I said, you and I, are not on the same page, because she was deceiving us, and different things was going on. She grew up in the church, but she was still deceiving us. She's doing things behind our backs and all of that. And I love her, I just love her to death. But then at the same time, as she's growing up, and she was like about 13 and 14, I started to almost feel like we're enemies, But by God's grace, something happened where she realized that she was resisting God's will in her life, and she surrendered her life to Christ. That made my day, and that made me so excited to see how. And then her teacher started telling me, how is your daughter so strong in her faith?
Right.
And I said, I don't know. And now she's just strong, right? And then I have a middle daughter, and she also had this experience of how Christ came into her life. And now she sings and she worships and she loves God. And even she'll correct me sometimes if I'm going astray a little bit in my attitude, in a loving way. And so I feel like this is my high point. And now I still have a son, and I'm seeing things in him as well. But yet he's a more reserved person. But I'm just excited to see my children loving God.
Oh, yes.
That's the high point of my Christian life.
Completely. I totally understand that. And that is such a great high point.
Amen.
Yeah, amen. Well, thank you, Sebastian. This has been fabulous. Fabulous hour to spend with
Stephanie.
you. Thank you for being here. Thank you, audience, for being with us. We are excited that you've joined us once again, and hope that you'll stay tuned for more episodes of Why We Are Christians.